Oh, g'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series. Today we're out in the bush once again. It's great, isn't it? I just love getting out in the bush. And what we're going to be looking at is a very interesting recipe. Obviously, yes, you need a wooden spoon, a bit of flour, and a bit of initiative. We're going to be looking at probably one of the simplest recipes you could possibly whip up. And no, it's not damper. It is not damper at all. It's named after a bloke who's probably the handiest bloke you could possibly have around a campfire. And his enduring legacy has been really kept alive in regards to a small cake. Yes, that's right. We're going to be looking at the humble Johnny cake, and I'm going to be showing you how you can bake it the authentic Australian way. That's right. No camp oven, no fancy induction oven, no clay, nothing like that. Pure initiative is all you need. And if you think that you haven't got the culinary skills to do it, don't worry, if I can do it, I'm sure you can too. So anyway, stay tuned for another interesting and informative video as always. Rightio, so as you can see, I've got the fancy Thermomix going over here, and basically you need to get your oven to the right temperature. And basically what you need to do is you need to get a few sticks. You don't need a massive bonfire to do this, it's really simple, and let it burn down. While it's doing that, we'll get busy over here. Rightio, so the ingredients that you need is really simple. Now look, if your skills in regards to cooking are so basic that you either do burnt or charcoal on the barbecue, you'll still be able to do this. So don't worry, keep viewing the video. So what we're going to use is a bit of self-raising flour. You don't need to use this, but we're going to be a bit fancy today. We're going to use a little bit of Wallabies baking flour, baker's flour. Australian made, so it's got to be good. We're going to use a bit of salt. Don't use rock salt, just use your average cheap salt you get from the shop. And obviously, as always, we're going to use butter, because butter is good, because it's natural. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, many of you are probably saying, well, that's just a basic damper ingredients. Yes, but there's a twist. So bear with me, listen, and you'll learn, because I'll show you that twist a little bit later on. Now, one other ingredient we need is obviously water. I'm going to show you what we need to do to make this all happen, and then I'll show you how we're actually going to bake it. It's going to be really good. Rightio. So I do apologise if the camera shakes around a little bit. It is a bit windy out here today. So the easiest way to think about this is think about two-stroke fuel. It's got a ratio, so that's what we've got here. So we've got a 3-to-1 ratio. Oh, that's not a bad diff ratio actually, 3-to-1. So there we go. So think of it like two-stroke or your diff ratio in your four-wheel drive. So what we're going to do is 1 cup of self-raising flour. Oh, okay, sometimes a little bit more, that's okay, that's okay. If we did it the same every time, then it'd be boring, wouldn't it? Oh, look at that, and I think of... And then what we're going to do is 3 cups of plain flour. Geez, that's a big batch. It's been a while since I've done this one. 2, 3. Okay. Set that out of the way. Now, dust it off. Now we need a little bit of salt in there. That's mainly just for taste, so I'll just put a little bit in there. Good thing about salt is it's got lots of goodies in it, and it stops your arteries going floppy. Another one good for that is butter. So we need 50 grams of butter. Now I'm going to weigh this by sight. which is usually pretty generous, but anyway. Now, because I haven't got any fancy apparatus here, I'm just going to shave it off just a little bit, and then that'll actually mix in a bit easier. So the whole point of this recipe is to show you that you really don't need to take fancy kit out bush to have, you know, a nice bit of, just wipe that off there, you know, to enjoy some nice cuisine. Okay, and so that's us pretty much done there. I'm just going to add a little bit of water in, and basically you just want to keep adding the water in until you get a nice sort of doughy consistency, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But anyway, I'll just mix this up and then I'll get you to catch up with me then. Okay, so just put a bit of cold water in there, just mixing it up, try and get the butter to mix in a bit. I think it's doing an alright job. Just have a bit of buttery goodness in some of your bites and not in others. But anyway, as you can see, it's a real sort of sticky dough, and that's how you want it. You don't want it just like a slurry. If that's the case and you've stuffed it up, don't worry. What you can actually do is you can just simply put a little bit more flour in it, whether it's plain, self-raising, doesn't really matter. And then you're all good. The other good thing too is you can see there's no dough stuck on my hand, so I've got that to a really good consistency. Now, to make a Johnny cake, you could put it in the fire just like that, but that'll take a month of Sundays to cook. What we want is we just want to crack off just by doing this, roll it into a little ball like so. So we got that. Then press it. And that's your Johnny cake there. So we'll do a couple of them. And I'm really glad that we're doing this. I've been out filming another video this morning and I'm actually pretty peckish. So it means I'm going to have to eat it regardless whether it's not a good recipe or not. Well, it is a good recipe. I've had it before, but you sort of forget the taste of these things after a while. Now, the Johnny cake itself actually has a really interesting story, and while I'm doing this I might as well keep the camera rolling and keep things as interesting as I can. So the Johnny cake here in Australia is obviously made this way, but in America it played a pivotal role obviously with the early pioneers. Now what they did is they actually used cornmeal, and that's actually slightly coarser than flour, so you don't get the same sort of consistency, but in essence pretty much the same recipe. Now one of the things that I find fascinating about Johnny cakes is that there's references to it in so many books, so many pieces of Australian literature, which is now sadly people aren't reading anymore. There's a guy by the name of Ian Idris, and he's one of my favourite authors, even though I can't pronounce his name right, but he mentions them quite a lot in his books, which are tales, mainly adventure tales of swagmen, swagmans, prospectors and adventurers. That's what I was trying to say, got there in the end. And basically, when you think about it, back in the 1800s, back in the early part of last century, you know, no one had refrigeration. Really up until probably the 1950s, no one had access to it. So what you had to do was take stuff that really didn't perish easily. Anyway, we've done that. And flour and potatoes was really all you had, and tinned corned beef. Anyway, let's get one of these, or a few of these now, and we'll chuck them in the fire and I'll show you how to bake them the correct way. So, as I said before, we've burnt the fire down. Now, what we want to do, sadly this wood isn't that effective, is you want to cook it in the ash of the fire, so like here. Just try and dig that out a bit. Now, because I haven't got the ash right, what I can do, just put a bit of soil over it. That's basically the way that I'm doing it here. It's no different how the local Aborigines actually used to do it back in the day. Because Johnny cakes, as I said, they've been around for a long time. And basically what the local Aborigines used to do is they would get seeds, particularly out of wattle or acacias around this area. Chuck that there, that'll cook a bit quicker. And basically what they would do is they would get the seeds, they would grind them up using stones of some nature, and then once they'd actually done that, they would then obviously add water, make it into a similar shape to what we got here, and then they'd cook it in the ash of the fire. Not the coals that I'm doing here, but I'm just trying to see if this will actually work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But what I've done at least is we've got a bit here. I'm using the sand as a bit of a buffer, and that's actually one of the ways that you can cook damper in the bush. If you don't have anything, mix it up, put some soil, put some sand's the best, over your coals, and that's obviously going to create a bit of a hot plate. Then put your damper on top of it, then obviously do the same on top, and then it'll cook from the bottom and the top. Now you're probably thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit sandy. Well, it's actually surprising. You can actually just brush the sand straight off it, so it's usually pretty good. Just move that one out of the way. And apart from using the bowl and a rough cup to measure everything, we haven't used any utensils. So it means no washing up. Rightio, so these are pretty much just about done. As you can see, they're smoking a bit, so you just need to flip them from time to time. That one's nearly done. That one's not quite. That one's done. That one's done. I thought I'd be feeling a bit more peckish, so I thought I'd put a few extras in. Let's see, is that one done? No, not quite. Flip that one over there. But that's basically all you do, and as you can see, you get a little bit of coal, but it just falls off. Anyway, now is the big test. We've got to taste it. That is good. Bit crunchy, but one of the great things about it, with the ash and all the rest, is it cleans your teeth up. But this one's really good. Probably could have left it in there a little bit doughy, but certainly hits the spot, and the golden syrup is when you're done, all your leftovers, you just chuck them in the fire and they burn. It's great. So you really don't leave any impact on the environment whatsoever. So one of the great things about this recipe, or you can't even really call it a recipe, I guess, is the simplicity behind it. And one of the amazing things in survival in regards to this country here in Australia, and obviously the indigenous people who've inhabited this for millions of years, is the fact that they've been able to do so in such an efficient manner. But anyway, the Johnny Cake, there you have it. A simple, effective recipe for your next adventure or camping trip. Anyway, if you're enjoying the content here at Seriously Series, then please do consider supporting us via Patreon. And if Patreon isn't your cup of tea, that's fine. You can support us via our website by giving a one-time donation if that suits you. And if you're new to the channel and you're just trying to find out who we are, what we do and all the rest, then be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. Click on that notification button too. And I hope to see you in our next video. These really are good. Just look at that. This is really what it's all about. A bit of golden syrup. So good. So good. Well worth the wait.